This
Well,
conference will now be.
If you think hitting record is going to keep us on track, you're funny.
yeah. Well, I can hope.
Hey, so
Grant,
a couple quick questions for you, Brian.
Mhm.
First off, did you get a chance to talk to China about that flatbed?
No.
Okay. My other question is, when you talk to China, one other thing I'd really like to have, and I know I can get them through China, but I'd rather have a Thunder branded one, is a CO2 Galvo with just something like about, a 10 by 10 work area, nothing huge. Because there are some things that now that I finally have my fiber, there's certain things that it would be nice to have the CO2 on a Galvo for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, I think they can probably make that stuff, but the progression may be, I don't know what they have on the plate. And we can run those up the flagpole, and see. I doubt they're going to stop what they're doing and make you a fiber laser to your specs, but Titan, they might. But I know you were talking about just getting the frames and stuff too, and that might be doable.
Yeah, and really that's all I'd be looking at probably is just getting the framework, and then I'll throw my own fiber source.
Yeah, you won't need a source or a tube or a power supply. Yeah, I got you. I'll follow back up. It's still on my list. I figured out how to use my list where I can actually see it now. So I'm using it.
But I mean, the CO2 Galvo is something that they could adopt really easy because they've already got the fiber Galvo, and all they're doing is swapping the source on it.
Right. So yeah, that would be an easy transition. So I think we want to get enough Auroras out there and make sure that we have, everything buttoned down and all that stuff, before we start adding on to it, which I think is a good idea. Let it, it's still in its infancy, really.
Yeah, you guys are running what, the Rakis source?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You guys gonna switch over to JPT?
I have no idea. Like I said, this is our first hat in the ring of fiber Galvo. So it's an evolution. So it'll get there. I don't know when. It'll get to where you want it. It'll get to,
I did see Jason is selling his Boss. Did you see that?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yep, he's selling his Boss.
So he's replacing it with for a workbench.
Huh?
Last I heard, he was using it as a workbench anyway.
Yeah, he's selling that and replacing it with the Nova 63.
Oh, good.
Oh, he's getting a 63? Okay. Nice. And is he getting a fiber?
He has a JPT 50 watt fiber.
Oh, I think he's going to get one of ours.
Oh, is he?
Okay.
I think so.
He's getting a 20 watt.
Wow. Yeah, I think I'm going to get one or two more 35s. It's a really good size, actually. I use my 63 a lot, but those 35s, I think the 35s you can honestly push harder than the 63s, just because this might be different since mine's quite a bit older one. But when I'm running vector cuts on my 63 at high speeds, I get a little bit of wobble in the line just because of the size of the belts and everything. And there's nothing you can do about that. But
they remediated that in 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They were playing with gear ratios, and they went from that HB 577 driver, that solid blue driver and motor. I think it was a LS 1000 motor. They went to an L 1000 and used a different driver. It was resonating around 300 millimeters per second or something like that. And they found where it was resonating, and by changing the motors and drivers, they were able to change that resonant frequency, I believe, in the motion system so that it wouldn't do that, or it would at least mitigate it.
Is that something I could adopt on mine?
Yeah, pretty easily. You'd probably have to run new motor cables, which I'd recommend anyway. Did you hear the first part of that, Chris?
No, I just got in.
Yeah, he was talking about how on the 63s, when he does long vectors, you get the wobble. And some of that's because of the resonation, of the resonance of that long gantry. It was only happening really on the 63. And then in that June, let me pull it up real quick. Let me see if I can get to the portal. I'll show you the difference and send you the link, Travis.
Okay.
Because it's got the drivers. I've got all the driver info in here. Let's see. Let me pull this up. So yeah, where is it? Here it is. So they played with the gear ratio some, and then here's the motors and drivers. They went to these drivers, the They went to these.
I
and then
see a background with a tent. That's all I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
you're not sharing the right screen, Brian.
always do that. Hang tight. There it
But
is.
you really shouldn't have those kind of pictures on your desktop, you know.
Was there anything on there that shouldn't have been?
No.
I didn't see it.
Just pictures of Grant's all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's those videos of you and Grant.
Yeah. So here's the gear ratios where they were playing with those.
Okay.
I think it was sacrificing too much speed, so they're going to keep it at 2-to-1 is less that we've heard on it. And here's the motors. The old motors, I'll open this in a new tab. The old motors were these. That's the ones that you probably have, the HBS 57s.
Yep.
And you probably have the LS 1000 motor. So the new version driver is this one, and it has an L 1000 motor.
Okay. Do I talk to you or talk to Grant about getting that as an upgrade kit?
I think honestly it'd be better off if I can try to find you this as a kit on CloudRay, because it'll come with the cables and everything. I've got the raw drivers. I don't think I have any of these cables. I'd have to order those and wait on them to get here or have them shipped direct. You know what I mean? I think it'd be a lot. I'll get with you on that too when we do that other thing.
Yeah, I don't mind getting them straight from CloudRay. So.
Yeah, I think they've got a kit because they've got a kit like the old ones, like the HBS. They have a kit with these, with the LS, with the correct motor. So I think they've got a kit that's these. So, and if you want the link to that, here, I'll pop it up in the chat. I said I would do that. That'll get you in the right. Where's the chat window? There it is. That'll get you in the right direction. And I can look on CloudRay, but I think they've got a kit that comes with the motors and drivers and cables. So.
Yeah. The other thing also for anyone who's on here that is wanting to do a lot of high definition engraving, the other thing that I found is that 3580 watt is for high definition engraving is light years better than the 63130, just because you can modulate the power so much lower. So that's just something to keep in mind.
There's a lot of discussion about that. Do I go with the 80 or do I do the 100 or do I do the 130? And everybody's like, go big or go home, go big or go home. And I'm one of the very few outcasts that say I can do just about anything I need to do with that 80 watt. Maybe not fast, but yeah, especially on that low end.
Yeah. When I'm doing engraving, because now that I have the 35 all set up and been playing around with it, now that we're starting to get towards the tail end of our Christmas rush, I've been able to play a little bit, and it's amazing at what that stupid little thing can do.
Let me ask you a question.
Most
of those systems you can tell are pretty much identical. Even the motors in the 35 should be the same as the ones that you have and drivers. But there's the TL timer board, which was that in yours? I think it was. Your exhaust was controlled, but it was not as good of a version. You had single air on that 63, right?
Yeah. So between my two machines, they're light years apart because I've got the dual air on the 35. I don't have that on the 63. The only thing that, looking at the machines, the only thing that I wish they got rid of and I wish they would bring back is the sensor, the limit sensor on the gantry. They went back to a mechanical switch. And I understand why they did, because people kept bending that stupid little bar. But I like the optical so much better.
Yeah, the opticals just got banged into so much and destroyed.
They did. Yeah,
they're hard to replace because you have to actually rewire them, and they're powered. So yeah, I get why they went back to them too, because you can replace one of those in 20 seconds, and even if you get the wires backwards, it doesn't matter. So I'm not a big fan. I've got the same ones you do. The old with the sensor flags, the opticals, and I kind of like them.
Yep, I like them. I mean, there's a little bit more maintenance. You've got to, continually check your little flag bar to make sure that it's going to sit right, and you've got to clean those optical sensors every now and then.
Right.
But, I like it.
What do you notice anything else different that's noteworthy about the two machines, one way or another?
Actually, the entire control system is different. So one thing, and it keeps throwing me off too, the new ones, I really like the new controller on those as opposed to the old one, because you can move your
The Z.
Your Z access straight from the controller without having to back out of, like, you get your file all set up, get your origin, you're like, oh, I'm not quite in focus. I need to move my table up. And then you have to start all over because you have to go clear back up to the main menu.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they're trying to move the autofocus to the first column also, so you don't have to navigate so far to get to it, since autofocus is another one that gets used a lot.
So
I just go
the
backwards.
autofocus is, I'd be willing to bet everyone who uses autofocus just about, when they go into the menu, they're hitting the down arrow to get to it, and don't do that. It's faster to hit the up arrow, which runs backwards through the menu.
I go backwards.
You do? Okay, yeah. So, but I don't use autofocus enough. And I just, my first laser was the Boss. The autofocus on it sucks royally. And so I just learned not to use autofocus. And so I'm completely manual every single time.
Well, that ULS I had autofocus, and it was horrible. I hear all the epilogues autofocus is horrible. I hear autofocus in general, from the old guys that've been running lasers, especially, they're horrible, and that's the first thing they take off of them.
Yeah.
And I was that way too, throughout my laser journey, because I never found one that worked. But as soon as I saw this one that was this infrared light curtain across the bed, I was like, wow.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's dead accurate. The only time you have an issue is if you get something on one of the little sensors and you have to clean the sensor. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, they're great. But the stupid touch probe ones are a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many times I've destroyed something on my Boss because I'll go to autofocus it. At least when I was first starting, I'd go to autofocus it, and it would drive down, and something would go wrong with the sensor, and it'd just keep pushing.
Yeah. Or go in a empty hole in the honeycomb.
Yeah.
and not touch anything else, and then you just crash.
Yeah. And people really underestimate how strong these motors are on these things. I've had on my Boss, I've actually crushed a tumbler during an autofocus before.
I saw that picture. Was that you that had the picture of it?
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was.
I mean, the motors are like stupid strong. So, which I guess is good, but at the same time.
One of the things I've always wondered, because I've seen where beds have gotten dragged on and tumblers have gotten crushed, is would there be a way that they could put some type of sensor in it that if there was so much resistance, did it just stop the gantry?
So the Thunders actually have that because they're running, I don't know if you guys actually know this. Ask me how I know. I've learned the hard way. So there's one time I left my, what?
That servos fight?
Yeah.
But they'll give up if you want to?
Yeah, with the servo motors, because they have a lot more fine-tuned control than the steppers that other guys use. The servos, like I accidentally had my rotary set on my bed because I was showing someone something about the rotary. So I just had it set on there, wasn't hooked up or anything. Forgot about it, turned on my laser. It went home and shot the head back and crashed in my rotary and kind of wrinkled my honeycomb bed a little bit. But it was enough resistance to shut off those servo motors and pop an air on the control panel. Whereas my Boss would not have done that. It would have fought until it smoked either a motor or a control board or something.
Because it didn't know where it was at. It just knew where it was supposed to go, basically.
Yeah.
And the Thunder knows that, something's wrong because I haven't moved X amount in X amount of time, so I must have a fault.
Yep. And it does it stops and throws an air and just, and the nice thing is when it does that, it also kind of releases the motors so you can do free movement on them, so you can move it back out of the way.
I've never pushed mine far enough for it to actually do that, but I know they will fight you. They like to stay in that spot. You can grab your head with that thing just sitting there and try to move it left and right and up and down, and it'll fight you. The harder you push it, the harder it'll push back to a point until it hits that.
Yep. But yeah, mine crashed hard enough that it actually released all the power to it, so I could actually free move my head. Then it was just, turn it off, turn it back on. Everything's good.
Probably overheated those jokers.
Yeah. So does it do that based on like the position control and the feedback, the position of the steps, or is it doing it through like over 4 current?
I don't know exactly.
Because you could do it that way as well.
Yeah.
So, on mine, if I remember correctly, the error I got on my control board was over current or over limit, something like that. So I think it's at least on mine when I crashed it, It was based on the amount of current that it was trying to push into the motor. And it reached a certain threshold and automatically shut off, which is good. That's what you want.
That may be a simpler way than trying to keep up with positioning.
Yeah. And I think it actually has both in it, as a kind of a double redundancy on there. But yeah, on mine, it threw it was either an over limit or over current access. I don't remember which one it was. And just shut it off and just protect everything. So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
You don't know how far you can bend a pencil until you break it, right?
Yep, exactly. Trust me, if something's happened to a laser, yeah, talk to me, because I'm sure I've had it happen to me.
Hey guys, I'm curious. You were talking about getting detailed engraving with the higher wattage tubes. Do you have any experience at all with the high definition lens, and does that in any way kind of give you more of a counterbalance for the extra wattage in the detail?
It actually makes it worse.
Yep.
It makes it worse because you're taking the same amount of laser power and putting it in a spot size that's half the size of what a 2-inch is, so your beam density is doubled. So you've effectively doubled your power, which means you would have to mitigate it even further. So I think that would be going the wrong way.
Yep. So what I can tell you is if you want to do high definition engraving on a 130, this is what I had to do with mine. Is Grant? It's like, see what I have? I have a photo.
That was 100 watt.
So on a 130, if you're going to do high definition engraving, you need to spend some time getting to know your machine first. And what I mean by that is take a piece of normal copy paper, put it on your bed, and start. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this here or not, but your lower limit that's built into the Thunder, you need to break that, and you need to set it at 0. So if you tell the system that you only want 1% power, it will deliver 1% power to it, or try to at least. By default, I don't think they do that. I think they default to like 8 or something like that.
It's 7. 7 is the low end, but that doesn't mean that you can't still strike that low. It just means that the scale has been altered. So you can still get 1% power out of the power supply. It's just going to be 8% instead of, or actually
correct.
not quite 8.
Yeah, and so if you want to get the best engraving, though, you need to break that lower limit and set the lower limit at 0. So when you tell your laser 0, it is actually 0. And then you need to start ramping up by 1% at a time until you get a mark on paper. And then once you get a mark on the paper, you need to go backwards and go back down by a fraction of a percent. So for example, on my 130, I can actually tickle it at about 5.2%. And that's my minimum engraving power to get that tube to fire. And every single tube will be different. But once you figure out that minimum, that's really where, because when I'm doing high definition engraving, I never go above 12% on my 130. I just don't have a need to. And so I can actually run a true 5.2 to a 12% for my gradient scales and get just gorgeous engravings on it. So that's
with the standard. What is it? A 2.5 inch lens? Is that what comes standard on the machine?
2 inch.
2 inch. So, yeah, if what if you went into the opposite direction and got a 1.5 inch focal length lens? Would that in any way?
The smaller the focal length, the smaller your dot size and the more concentrated your power is. That's why typically I'm always running a 2.5 inch lens on my 130 because it's got the power to push it. It does great at engraving, does great at cutting. It's really a good all-purpose lens for the 130s. If you're on a 80 or a 100 watt, stick with the 2 inch for your all-purpose lens.
So this adjusting of the minimum power rating for the tube. So this is something that you're kind of overwriting the software on the Ruida on the board. Is that how you're entering these numbers? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think Thunder will support you doing that. But what I can tell you is if you hop on the Lightburn forums, there's all sorts of tutorials on how to do it.
Okay. All right, I'll check that out.
It's really easy. I adjust mine all the time.
Okay.
Yep. And other thing too, right, is before you adjust it, right, play with it, see what results you get, right. You'll get some people that tell you, oh, they're horrible at engraving on the 100 watt or the 130 watt, right. you got to look at it, right? The 130 watt that I've got a 51 130 with a 2-inch lens, is way better than I ever thought it would be. Right now, can it get better? Absolutely, it can, but it's more than good enough for most people, right? So yeah, you can always strive for better and push it harder and get more results or better results out of it. But you might find that the machine is perfectly capable of doing it. What you need completely stock.
Right. I actually have what could be the added benefit of I'm buying this machine from a previous owner. So I'm hoping that he's got the familiarity with the machine and he can say, oh, he may know, how the minimums run on the tube that's in there right now and have some other information and settings for me. But it's good to know because like I said, I'm planning on doing a lot of engraving. So I'd like to be able to, to maximize.
Now, on the machine you're buying, how old is it?
The tube has got about 700 hours.
Okay, well, I mean, as far as when was the machine manufactured?
Oh, I think it's about a year and a half old.
Okay, so what you're going to have to look for, does it have the dual air assist on it?
I think it does.
It does? Okay, so yeah, he'll have the newer
Brian may be more familiar with the machine because it's Jordan.
Yeah. It's the 2020 and newer.
Okay.
It's got the dual air. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Brian knew where I was going with it. So yeah, the older machines, they didn't have some of those stopgap measures implemented. They didn't do those until 2020 when they adopted the dual air system and the new control panel and all that kind of stuff. So what I was going to say is if the machine is older, then a lot of the stuff, it might be better for like me and you to hop on a call afterwards to go through some of that.
Right.
A lot of information will be different. But yeah,
Right.
you're on the newer one, so super simple to work on.
Yeah.
That's my wife. I'm just picking her up from the train station here. So
well, tell her we said hi.
We said hi. Or as Brian would say, hi.
Cool. All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, like I said, just jump in here. Otherwise, Grant, you got anything new?
I mean, if I can do stuff like that with the 100 watt, I'm sure people can do better than that on a 130.
Yep. So and Grant, actually, if you want to get that even better without changing anything on the laser, take two. This is one of the things I said in the after hours last time, so I'll say it again this time. Take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, mix it in 1 liter of water, put it in a spray bottle, and spritz that plywood before you laser engrave it.
Just spray it. That's it.
Just spray it, and
Well,
then
let it dry.
Yeah, let it dry, and then laser engrave it. You don't have to get it super wet because you don't want it to warp. If you do accidentally put too much on, what I tell people is flip it over and spray the backside the same amount. That way, it'll sit there and fight each other and stay straight. But what that does is it makes your brown tones even darker, so you can actually get almost a true black color when laser engraving birch.
I heard that borax was the
borax does it as well.
Yeah, borax does it as well, but it's not nearly as, I'll say, clean for better part. If you try the 2 side by side, and you will smell the difference. I promise you.
All right. Well, so baking soda or borax, we'll have to run that.
Yep. The reason I use baking soda is it doesn't smell as bad when you burn it. Also, we do a lot of Lichtenberg or fractal designs, and so that's the same solution we have to use for that.
I'm gonna ask.
Really well.
I'm gonna ask if you have one of the machines that's kind of specific built for that purpose, or okay.
I have.
Did you specifically build it?
Power supplies.
Yeah, I have one that is a home built, and then I have one that is a professional built that's OSHA rated. Mm-hmm. So I have both styles, and they are drastically different. So the one that is OSHA rated, it only runs at 30,000 volts, and so the branching is much finer and it doesn't go as deep. Whereas the other one I have is 80,000 volts and a higher milliamp. And that's how I can get my good, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch deep engraved lines, super thick,
Nice.
bold lines.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what, at the place that I used to work a long time ago, it was a copier place, and they had a storefront and these big, huge neon signs all the way around the
Mhm.
outside. I was up in the ceiling running some wires one day, and I saw this neon sign transformer, and it was as big as a 5-gallon bucket, and it was sitting up there, man. I mean, it looked like a pole pig. It was huge. I don't know how big it was, and I know it did not have current limiting on it. I know because it was probably put in there in the early '80s, and
Even the new ones don't have current limiting.
they don't on the
Nope.
commercial ones.
Nope. On the commercial ones, they don't have commercial limiting. They can't. It's against fire code to have it.
I gotcha.
Because if you
But
limit the current and that neon is still trying to pull that much, it'll catch the unit on fire.
yeah, and see, I was thinking Jacob's ladder, but
Oh, yep. Same
same
thing.
thing, same thing. So that would be neat to play with. I
Yep.
used to play with high voltage a lot more, but I sometimes I don't these
You
days.
know what? So the one that I have, I've got a 1-inch thick rubber insulation mat that I stand on when I'm working with it. But the one that was OSHA rated was really nice. I mean, they've got these super nice fiberglass insulated handles,
Yeah.
these little arc shields by your hands, and they come with high voltage lineman gloves and everything. So, and his track record is he's had injuries with his unit, but he's never had a single death with one of his units. And that's how he was able to get the OSHA rating on it, which is just insane, I think. But yeah, really, really cool stuff to play with.
Yeah.
Travis, is it one with like the enclosure and the multiple interlocks to where you have to have both sides clamped and in place before you can switch it on?
Nope. It's got a foot kill pedal on it. And on any of them, even if you home build one, I recommend doing it. It's called a dead man switch. So it'll only
Yeah.
activate when you're stepping on it. So that way,
Yeah.
if you get electrocuted, when you go to start twitching around, it'll break that current and automatically shut it off.
My luck is I'd fall right on top of the dead man switch.
Probably, yeah.
Or
Dead man switch is not the most comforting terminology for.
Yeah.
Well, that's just what they call them. So
Yeah.
But
Dead man
yeah,
switch.
no. And if anyone's interested in that, shoot me a message on Facebook. I'll share the company's name on who I got it from. It definitely is an art form on trying to figure out how to learn how the electricity moves throughout the wood grains, and also to even get the thing started. I mean, when I first did it on my homemade one, I'm like, man, this thing sucks. What did I do wrong? It's not doing anything. And then I bought the pre-built one, and same thing. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And come to find out, you can't have too much water on it, and you can't have too little water on it. There's a very specific amount of moisture that has to be on that wood, and if you are not at that, it won't spark.
So is this the kind of thing where you spray it and check it with a moisture content probe of some sort? Is it that kind of thing, or do you just spray water on it until it starts working?
I spray it until I just eyeball it now. I've got moisture meters, so I could probably tell people what it would be, but the problem is the surface is always going to be wet, so it's going to peg those meters out at 100% anyways.
True.
Especially because you're adding baking soda into it, which helps electricity flow. So it's really just kind of an eyeball thing. Usually I give it just a really quick spritz and let it sit for a few seconds to absorb in, and then I'll give it one more spritz right before I start. And then as you get used to it, you start to learn like, oh, if I run my spray this way, I can control where the electricity is going and all that kind of fun stuff.
Gotcha. It's a process.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's fun though.
Yep. And a couple of things along those lines. So I think Chris from House of Lasers did a video on the baking soda solution. Right, that's a quick 5-minute video. He engraved a Mustang, so if anyone's looking for more info on that. Another thing that I saw a video on that was quite interesting was using the fiber galvo to engrave wood by putting the different concentrations. I think borax, baking soda, a couple of other things on there, and you're effectively, ablating the impurities in the solution that causes it to char the wood. But you can actually get some pretty interesting looking marks on various types of wood with the solution sprayed on them as well.
Yep. I should probably look into that too. Has anybody tried using a fiber galvo to remove a stain on a piece of wood,
No.
Not.
Hmm.
like an ink mark or something?
I
I was
bet you I know someone who's going to try that here in a little bit, though.
video or it didn't happen.
Yep. So I know one thing that I figured out because fiber lasers cannot mark glass. So the laser just goes right through glass. But I actually figured out a way to do it, which is really slick. So if
Aluminum
anyone
foil.
picks up, huh?
Aluminum foil.
Yep, aluminum foil. You stick aluminum foil under the glass and mirror your image, and then you shoot it through. Or sorry, no, you don't mirror it. You just shoot it through, and it burns the aluminum foil and adheres it to the back side of the glass. Really cool effect.
Yep.
How did you guess aluminum foil? I had to play with that forever.
So, somebody did a video on it.
I should do more searching on YouTube. That would have saved me hours of work.
Yeah. The other one too is if you go doing clear acrylic, right? So people trying to find working settings on clear acrylic as they're burning up their their aluminum
Yeah.
base as they're shooting right through the acrylic. But yeah, there are settings, and I'll have to see if I can find the website. There's a guy that did a lot of testing on various different plastics in the fiber laser, and which settings work for which types of plastics. And I actually really like with black acrylic not extruded with black cast acrylic. You can get some phenomenal looking results on the fiber. It's almost like a shiny mirrored silver on the black.
Huh.
That is cool stuff.
So what projects has everyone been working on?
Ornaments.
Ornaments.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
has
so sick
anyone
of
been
ornaments.
working on a non-Christmas item?
That
No
many,
one?
huh?
Nope. I don't make anything.
Yeah, I have been.
So I worked on
I've
stuff that was Christmas presents, but not Christmas themed. But yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
just had.
so sick of Christmas ornaments. We've been pushing out almost 1,000 ornaments a day off of our lasers. So I'm very glad that the season for us is starting to come to an end.
Yeah, I really
Yeah, you
been.
must hate all that money
I've
just
been
rolling in from all those ornaments. That's terrible.
I've been doing a lot of lakes.
The lake maps,
Yeah,
those are
Lake
cool.
maps are
yeah.
fun.
I did one, and then all of a sudden I got hit with about 30 orders.
Hmm.
nice.
Now, do
Yep.
you go into the map, into that Snazzy Maps or
I
whatever,
go
and
into
use one of those templates?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
I haven't tackled that
But
yet.
I don't fill them. I don't fill them with epoxy. I just put blue vinyl under them.
Hmm.
I did the Chesapeake Bay and a couple different lakes, and then people started wanting lakes in places I never even heard of before, and trying to go find them.
Yep.
Right.
Are you doing
I
the
guess
depth
one
of the lake?
lady, one no, just a simple flat cutout, and then marking, where their person lives or has
Hmm.
a lake house or
Yep.
whatever.
Sure. Yeah,
But
What
that's
I
it
can
possible.
tell you
it
is
ballooned.
if you start getting into the depths of water, um, it gets really interesting really fast. I'm still trying to learn how to use the system completely. So what we've been doing is we're pulling it out of my Garmin packs that I have,
The
and
topo
actually
maps.
huh?
Are you
Yeah,
using the topo maps?
yeah. We're using the ones out of our fish finder, and then we're actually going back in and hand tracing each layer. So for each map, it takes us about 120 hours to make one map
I
because
bet.
we're doing
I
like
bet.
12 layers.
Oh wow, that's wild. You
Yep.
know something that I just picked up, and I don't know why, because I'll never use it either. A dye sub printer. I'm gonna give my shot at that. I got one of those Epson Eco tanks to play with, and some various items. So I had a heat press sitting around. I figured I might as well put it to use. So I'm gonna try my luck at some sublimation. I'm hoping it'll spark my creativity.
Well, if you need some help or ideas, let me know. I've got 3 sublimation printers here that run all the time. So we do
Do you
some
have
crazy
any?
stuff.
Do you have any white toner? The toner printers, the laser printers, the dry toner printers that are white that'll print the
I,
white, like the Oki does them, and then there's that
yeah.
company that uses their
So
print engine.
I had an
Different
actual Oki white toner printer, and I had an Oki full color printer. Got rid of both of them because what we do now is we have an Epson F2100 DTG, and we converted it
direct
to
to garment.
DTF. Yeah,
Okay.
and with converting it to DTF, I can get that to stick to more stuff. So
Yeah.
we do DTF prints now, and the big one up front.
No heat required.
Yeah, but I mean we can put that stuff on. We put it on leather, on tumblers, clothes, whatever. It'll stick to anything. I put it on wood. And everything gives it kind of its own effect, and I can modulate that white underbase a lot better than I can with a toner printer. So if I want like wood grain to show through, I can just put a super light layer of white, just enough for the adhesive to stick.
I got you.
But still get that wood grain to pop through all the color, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
But you're talking the difference between a $4,000 printer and a $25,000 printer.
Right. Yeah, I want a LogoJet UV printer is what I want, but the LogoJet 40, I think the 40 is for the first 2 digits, the 40,000 for that thing.
You want a UV printer? I've got a UV flatbed. I'll sell you.
Man, yeah, I do want one, but do I need to buy it? No, because
Sure
it'll
you
just do nothing. Man, I've got so much stuff around here, and I never use any of it. I could have my own little makerspace probably, and I don't make anything. I am gonna make some Christmas stuff, presents, personal stuff.
Yeah, I think you need to send me that thing over your back left shoulder so that way I'll put it to some use.
Oops, wrong way.
The fiber. You ought to talk to Grant. He might be able to work you out a deal.
Still
not
waiting on
yeah.
that.
They're not selling too well right now.
So these are the maps.
That's pretty.
So, and they're all epoxy filled. Our compass rose doesn't show up well in camera, but the compass rose is all done out of mother of pearl, basically, abalone shell.
That's pretty.
So, yeah, and we sell those. Those are about $1,200 a map. So.
And people actually buy them for that. Wow.
What was that?
Yeah, what I've been doing is not even in that class.
Yeah, we do a lot of these. We'll do custom ones for charter boat companies up here. That way, when they take their clients out, when they're sitting at their table, they can actually see all the 3D of the water and all that stuff when they're out, running out to fishing grounds or whatever.
That makes total sense.
All right. So, Chris, do you have anything, man?
Put me on the spot like that.
Yeah,
I've got printers if that's what you're talking about, or talking about thunder-related stuff.
I'm just thunder-related stuff. Anything that you've seen? Because most everybody, I guess, knows on here, but Chris is our other tech, and I just want to see if he had anything that he wanted to say, because sometimes I'll do that to Grant, see if he's got anything he wants to say too.
No, it's been a crazy year. Lots of good stuff going on. I like seeing people's projects. A lot of creative people out there.
I wish I was creative.
Yeah.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, and I got something for you, Chris. I think we swapped some comments on Facebook on something that's actually piqued my interest in some testing on the different fill modes.
Oh, yes.
Engraving. Yeah. So that's something. So I wasn't aware on the acceleration or deceleration, right? So I think that actually makes a lot of sense onto why some of the preview times are a lot more accurate than others, right? But that being said, I guess depending on how big your project is, you can still save some time depending. I was still seeing that even on the one that I was doing, just because it was across the size there, I was still seeing it was a little bit quicker to do them in as the groups on how I grouped them rather than across the full bed, just because of the traverse time. So it looks like the open space traverse time took longer than the acceleration deceleration on the groups.
Yeah, so you've got to find that balance, right? So you look at
Exactly.
that red coloring on the preview and see, okay, I'm only lasering 30% of the time, but you also got to look at your layer speed. If I'm going 1,000 versus going 200, it kind of changes the equation. I think I put together a little basic kinematics equation that you can actually determine what your extend space distance would be, so you know where to place your graphics. I could probably extend that to say how much time each acceleration is going to be, because you can look at your graphics and kind of determine what your lines per inch and your total height is, and see, okay, I've got 5,000 or 500 lines per inch max, or 300 regular, and it's a 5-inch tall, so I got 1,500 accelerations and decelerations. That's going to come out to, a minute and 30 seconds, 5 minutes, and kind of use that as the gauge. But when you go into those individual, like that snowflake one that the Wings had posted, you got those little tiny columns in the snowflake. So, it's a 3 millimeter
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
accelerate and decelerate on the outside of that. And that's very wasteful. And if you got to do, 150 objects that way, it's going to kill you. What I found it most useful for was like when I was doing a engraved border around an object. Like, so say you're doing a circle that you offset and give it a 1/2 inch border. I actually divide that circle in half and try to do individual shapes that way, so it's not going all the way across the width of my circle, because it's very long to the other direction. And then there's also the other mode of offset fill, which is a little different. It uses that
The
vector.
flood field. Yeah.
Yeah, well, flood fill is different. That's supposed to
Well, I was
optimize.
going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, don't use flood fill on a rotary job. But the offset basically draws the shape inside of itself over and over, so it uses vector motion to give you a fill effect. More efficient at times. Again, it's really when you got that long gap between things. But
Yeah,
um,
sort of how a CNC cuts out, right? You would
yeah,
just take
yeah,
and draw the pocket over and over and over and get
yep,
smaller.
yep, yep. And the thing is, it's not going to give you that even engrave like a regular fill layer would do, because with vector speeds, when the head's moving, it can only move so fast as it's creating those arcs, and then it has to slow down. Well, if the power stays constant,
Yep.
your dwell time increase is a factor in how much wood or whatever is going to laser off. So all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
plays into it.
You'd have to have your min max set perfect for it, right? Or
Yeah.
else you're gonna get darker spots where it slows down, and some of the issues with say vector engraving.
Yep. Which a lot of people are like, oh, I set my layer speed to 500. It's like, yeah, but your y-axis is capped at 300, and your graphics are 1/4 inch tall text, or intricate details. You're not going to hit that rate, else you'll get rounded over corners and zigzags, and it just won't look good. So there's all that goes into it. I thought there's just some stuff up there.
Now I followed you. So just recap on one little section. I followed you all the way up until where you said kinematic equation. So just take back off from there.
All right, so
No. I'm just kidding.
your general A cell, D cells,
This is
go back to
no. I never thought about the motion planning the way that you're describing it, and it's like opened up this whole new
Yep.
thing that no, don't go back through it. I'll watch the
Hey,
recording.
Brian,
But
It's
yeah,
also doing a
there's you.
trapezoidal acceleration, which is not correct, but close enough.
What you and I was talking about earlier today. There's a topic.
what? The
Remember what you
camera?
and I was talking about? No, remember what you and I was talking about earlier today, having set
Oh, different.
agendas for this.
Right.
To
Yeah,
have him on here to show that live
that
and
would be
have
a cool
people be able
topic.
to, yeah, there's your topic.
What's the
Well,
topic?
can the motion planning stuff that you're describing? Can you see that in debug mode?
Well, I don't think Lightburn does. It's me on a spreadsheet, and then just in my mind as well. Like I said,
Dr. Meyer.
would be equations, assuming the trapezoidal A cell, D cell. You figure out your lines per inch, and you kind of add it all up and say, okay, will individual or grouping help me out? A lot of it is looking at the preview window, and you see the red fill, and you see the traversal moves, rapid moves is like 80% of your job. At that point, you can make the call and say, okay, there's probably some optimization I could do. Now, there's also some other cool stuff you can do if you're willing to balance material cost versus the time of your laser. Like if some people want to say a laser is $2 to $3 a minute, and you're trying to save, a $20 piece of plywood. Well, nesting is great, but that's poor for performance if you start offsetting where your engraves are, because the laser likes to accelerate, burn in the X direction, slow down, turn around and do the next direction. If you do nesting, you've actually shifted your graphics, and you took what could have been a 300 line graphic and made it 450. So you just added 150 extra A cells and B cells, which is time, just for a little bit of plywood or birch or whatever, depending on your material cost. If it's acrylic, that's a different story. That stuff's expensive. So you just got to balance that out. For me, I like time. Material, I throw enough of it away. It's, I nested close enough, but really time is the concern.
See,
Well, I do have one fun thing. So I had a present show up while we were on the call. So those of you who don't have a rotary yet and are comparing the Thunder to the Pyburn, I have both now. I'll be doing a review video on it. And what I can tell you just by looking at this and playing with it for a quick minute, don't waste your money on a Pyburn. Just buy the Thunder one. So they're only $100 difference, and yeah, we'll wait for the review video, but you'll see why.
Yeah, clip that, Brian.
There's a lot of room for improvement on the Pyburn. We'll go with that.
Well, since there's a few people in here, what Brian and I was talking about earlier today is, would you guys like to see like specific topics?
What are you doing, dude? Now we're gonna have to do it.
No, I'm just gonna ask. There's 5 or 6 people in here, or 5.
Yeah, it's okay. 9. Jim's the one who's going to be doing it.
Yeah. Jim's going to become the admin. He's going to keep meeting minutes and everything.
I don't think so. This is coming from the person that never used to talk in this room, and now I'm stirring it up.
Yeah.
Do you guys think it'd be productive to have, let's say, something like Chris was doing, or talking about having in demonstrations or a specific topic covered once a week, once a month?
To take up any space, because what we've seen is we used to have quite a few people in here. Of course, I don't advertise it like I should, but I'm a techie guy, not a marketer. But a lot of it's the same stuff, and if we get stagnant, I've just noticed that, and I'm wondering if the format's getting old. And I know I talked about that before, and the whole thing was, well, this is a Q&A session. It's supposed to be kind of like that, but we were talking about it more. And if we, I tried the backup topic thing, and I never could come up with those. But if we could do like Jim and I were talking about it earlier, and have something every so often, a topic of content, and then we can still have questions and all that stuff too.
Like first 30 minutes cover what Chris was just talking about, and him and just displaying whatever it was, the jibber jabber that I totally lost with what he was saying. But to physically, some people are more visual and some people are more audio, yeah, whatever word that is.
Maybe
auditory.
Maybe I could schedule a remote session, like for me really working, like what I would be doing, if I wasn't on here, and everybody could get a glimpse into how the back end works. Like we could all join in on a remote support session and fix whoever it is problem, and actually work through it live. I don't know.
That would be different stuff. It was just an idea to break up the monotony.
Yeah.
I guess you're going to call it.
Well, and that's kind of what I was doing with the Mad Moose stuff for a little bit, until I just got too swamped with Christmas stuff. And I know I was originally planning, as we get closer to Christmas, we'll be doing once a week. And then we just got hammered with orders, and I just couldn't keep up with it. But I'll be starting to do that again here soon. Maybe we can merge the two together. And if you wanted to, I could do the first 20 minutes or so of the thing as a quick little Q&A or a little demo thing, and then from there, it's all Q&A for the next 40.
We can have a little discussion group about it, and focus group, and see what we think about it, and work on that. But like I told Jim also, let's do that, Q1 2022, because right now that's the last thing on my mind. So
that's what we said after the first of the year, coming to come up with something just to have a structured, at least once every 2 weeks, once a month, once every week, whatever. First 30 minutes cover our topic, and then the last 30 minutes.
Right. So yeah.
Sorry, I can't get over how Pyburn can charge what they do for this.
They put all the Christmas decorations on it.
Well, I got that just because it was a limited edition. It was the same price and everything. I'm like, why not? But yeah, like, I
Travis
don't know
was just hungry when he seen it.
well, here, I don't know if you guys can hear this or not, but doesn't it sound lovely? I mean, it's just little things like that. Or
Right, just sitting there.
here's another good one. Let's see if it'll show up on the camera. So all I'm doing is just barely wiggling it, and that whole gantry's moving, or this whole piece of the gantry's moving up and down. There's like nothing. Yeah,
There's a thumb screw there to lock it into place, I think.
That'll look nice hanging on your Christmas tree, though, Travis.
No, I have the thumb screw. There is a thumb screw right here. I have that locked down, and I can still move that gantry a little bit and wiggle it. I don't know if you can tell from the knob, but that's how much play there is in it. It's just insane. There's none of that on Jason's.
Use it as a Christmas centerpiece.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is the one for my 35 because that is the one downfall is since I have 2-generation machines, I can't swap the components back and forth because it's a 5-pin versus a 7-pin. I already rewired it from the 7-pin to the 5-pin. I'm not going back the other way. It was a pain in the butt.
Did you get the metal
upgrade? Buy a
upgrade
new
for the Rotobox?
63.
What was that?
Just
Did you
gonna
get the
buy a
metal
new
upgrade?
63.
No, I haven't done the metal upgrade on the Rotoboss yet, which
You
I don't
should
know
before
that
you review it.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I'll talk to Jason, see if he'll hook me up with one.
It's nice.
Sure he will.
He's the one who asked me for the review anyway, so.
Yeah, I did the one to my full roto. I did the all metal because I had the acrylic. I even had the acrylic plates still.
That's what mine has.
So
I've got one of the original beta units.
yeah, I've got a junior that's the original. Well, not the beta, but one of the first production ones out. Maybe the first production one out. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the acrylics. But that Roto Junior, after I did that full metal upgrade on it, is even more solid than it already was.
There's no way, that thing was already pretty solid.
It was, but all of the bearing flanges and all that stuff are no longer, printed. So that was a big deal to me, is the bearing flanges.
Yeah.
Nothing structural on that Rotoboss is 3D printed. The only thing I can find on it 3D printed is those 4 little end caps on the extrusions, just a decorative piece. So that matters, other than maybe a injection molded thumb screw or something like that here and there. But
yeah, that's the one thing that sucks about running Mad Moose, because of the training videos that we do. I've got to buy crap like this. To test out, because I know that there's going to be people with Pyburns out there.
Yeah.
And now I'm stuck with the $900. Yeah.
I thought you were going to wait for your review. I want to see that when you get it done too. I'm remaining down the middle because I don't care what you use on your Thunder as long as you don't burn up the machine doing it. So.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
I was gonna say, if he's not burning up cutting car hoods yet, he's probably not gonna burn it up.
So Jordan had a question. How often models are changed where the parts aren't interchangeable? Now, are you talking about the lasers themselves?
Well, so I've got a 60-watt red-black Chinese right now, and I just ordered the 35, thanks to Grant. I got the 3580 that's coming in next month, so hopefully I'll get tracking soon. But I want to replace my red-black with another 3580 in a couple years, but I don't want to come to a situation where they're so different, the parts aren't interchangeable.
So the only differences lately, the big change was when we went, like in 2019, right around in there, to that dual air assist. That was that was a big milestone in the evolution. Since then, they've added things like a door sensor board. Like mine doesn't have a door sensor board on it. To hit one button and disable all the safety interlocks so that you can run or maintain the machine with the door open, with its firing. Little things like that. But the motors, the drivers largely haven't changed in 15 years. So as far as motors, power supplies, now the Nova 3580, I think now comes with a RISI tube. That changed. How
And
long
then I
ago?
watched your video
Didn't the
from the 11.
solenoids on the air get upgraded as well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
little things like the air solenoids and the crumb trays.
I say they
As
crumb
far
trade.
as
yeah.
as far as major stuff, chiller, exhaust. Well, we added inline fans now, the quiet inline fans, not ultra quiet.
It's still compatible. It's just different. And if something were to happen, you could replace a lot of those components with what was changed.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Power
I'm
supply,
thinking if I have two
bearings, motors. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
just like
machines, I want to make sure they use the same tubes, the same mirrors, the same lenses, all those,
Right.
all the replaceable pieces.
All
the
of the
consumables.
consumables.
The consumable stuff. So I'm not buying right now. I have the red and black, so I have to buy different pieces for that than I'm going to have to buy for my
Mhm.
3580.
Yeah, and now a lot of the stuff with Thunder is proprietary, like the boards and stuff. But the lenses, we have good U.S. made optics. I'm not sure if they're 2.6, but I think maybe they are. But they're standard, 20 millimeter diameter, 2-inch focal length. And our mirrors are 20. The beam combiner on the 35, I think, is a 25 millimeter. So, and all those are in the specs, and those, yeah, the optics especially, those haven't changed in decade.
Okay.
More.
Yep. Yeah, and even on mine, since I have two different generation machines, the only thing on mine that's not compatible back and forth is the rotary, and that's just because they went from a 5-pin to a 7-pin, which was actually a good upgrade. And I think Thunder's still the only one that is doing it or using the U channel for that, for the U access for that.
I think some others are starting to
Are they?
trickle. Yeah, I'm not
But
sure
it's a
specifically.
night and day difference, because when you, on my old generation one, when you go to use the rotary, you plug it in, you flip the switch, program it into Lightburn, and it works. But then to go back to the other way, I have to disconnect everything, turn it off, turn on my laser, uncheck it in Lightburn, turn my laser back off, turn my laser back on, and then it's reset to where I can use it as a normal laser. On the 35, using that U access, it eliminates all of that.
Yeah,
Travis,
it's hot swappable. And
shoot, on my
yes.
red and black, my stepper was overheating. Mansfield Customs rotary I'm using, the stepper was overheating. So if I hook up my rotary, I have to go in the controller for the y-axis and lower my amperage on the controller, and then remember to turn it back up, otherwise my y-axis loses its mind with half the amperage.
And are you actually having to disconnect and wire it into your y-axis output as well, right?
I have to turn it off, unplug the y-axis, screw it in, turn it back on. After adjusting the
Yep, that's the way it is on my Boss too. Is I've got to turn it off, unplug my y-axis, and they didn't put it in a convenient spot. It's like way in the far back corner of the machine. So I've got to reach all the way back there and try to, without being able to see anything, because it's past all the belts and everything. Most of the other ones they're horribly designed. And even my buddy's Epilogue, I was over at his shop helping him out the other day, and I'm like, when are you gonna get rid of this piece of crap? He's like, what are you talking about? Epilogues are the best. I'm like, dude, come, you've seen mine. Mine will run circles around yours. So, and he's actually talking about getting rid of his Epilogue and getting a couple Thunders.
Wow. Is there anything I need to be aware of? I've been using the red black for a few years now. Is there anything I need to learn about that's different with the
Are you using Lightburn?
Yeah, I've been using Lightburn for 2 years.
So if you're using Lightburn, what I can recommend is get a couple beers, because Thunders are such a cakewalk to run that you're going to be bored running them now, and you're just going to want something to do. So grab a couple beers and just enjoy.
Good. Well, I'll tell you, so my red black, I actually bought from a buddy who had 6 Epilogues, and he was doing $500,000 in business. And for some stupid reason, he bought 2 Chinese knockoffs, and then he bought a K40 for some reason. And he realized that they don't work the same.
Because he was bored. Yeah.
Yeah. So he sold me 2 of the red blacks for $1,000, and then I sold one of the red blacks to a buddy for $1,000. So I paid nothing. It's generated probably $65,000 in 2 years, and just toying around on the side.
And a lot of experience on Ruida controllers and running lasers. So
a lot of experience. I mean, his lens was upside down. The mirrors, he only used the top left corner of the bed because that's the only place he could get the mirrors aligned. So nothing was aligned, and it was all jacked up.
So yeah, with the Thunders, it's very rare that I hear about one coming in that's not aligned. I mean, almost all of them. The two of them that I have, and keep in mind, I live in Alaska, so mine's got to travel from China over to LA, over to their warehouse in Texas. Is that where your warehouse is?
It goes from LA to you. We don't.
Oh, from LA to
It
okay.
doesn't make a stop through Texas.
So
Yeah.
so it goes from LA and then comes up to Seattle, then gets loaded on a barge, gets barged up to Alaska, and then dropped off with me. So I mean, mine, if anyone's going to be beat up, it's going to be the ones coming up to Alaska, and both of mine were perfectly aligned when they got here. I didn't have, I've only had one issue with one of them, and that was recently, and it was a power supply that went out, and I had a new one in like 2 days and had it back up and going. I mean, they're so simple to work on. The wiring is so clean on these Thunders. It took me, I
And
think,
marked.
5 minutes
And we
total.
have diagrams.
Yeah, and you have diagrams. But I think it took me a total of 5 minutes to swap out the power supply for the laser tube on there, and that's including pulling my machine out and all that kind of stuff. It was super easy.
Does that happen a lot? Power supplies go bad?
No.
Not really. I mean, it's a thing. So there are failure rates. I freaked out at first. I tell that story all the time, probably too much, because our volume, our users are going up. So things, numbers play a factor. It's not super common, but it is a 30,000 volt transformer, a flyback, and those are a little bit unreliable no matter how well you engineer them. And sometimes they can just short down and fail, or the rectifier will go out or something like that.
But I'm sure Travis's power supply was way older and probably a little abused too.
No, actually, that one was on my 35. So it was still under warranty. Yeah, it was on my newer one. Yeah, my old one that I abused the crap out of. I mean, that thing's 4 or 5 years old now, and I'm just now. I think I'm starting to approach the end of life on the tube. But I don't even know how many hours
That's
I have
the
on that.
original tube?
That's the original tube.
Really?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, and I pushed that thing
from your controller.
I cut metal with my 130. I mean, I beat the crap out of that thing, and I'm just now coming to the end of life on the tube.
Nice.
So there's a testimonial for you, Brian.
So Jordan, coming from the clone world, you're gonna be so happy.
Well, I'm telling you, it's been a good experience. I mean, I've replaced my tube twice. I've broken tubes, installing them improperly. I've replaced all my tubing. I've replaced the power supply twice. All the lens, all the mirrors. I mean, I know that thing in and out. But
yep. So, on my big 130, I'm still on my original 2-inch lens. I'm still on my original mirrors and my original tube, original power supply. Everything is still original on that machine. So, I mean, of course, I have other lenses. I've got 2.5s and, the HRs and all that. But that thing is they're just rock solid machines. My buddy with this Epilogue, he goes through a lens every 6 months.
You'll see a huge difference. And I started off, well, I had a ULS first, and then I got into K40s and other clones. So I've been around all that mess, and those are the ones that you have to do. You have to put another chiller in, and you have to upgrade the wiring, and you have to put another air pump on it, and all of that, the exhaust, everything, new optics. You might as well, and then it's just neat to me to be able to see one of these machines, and you don't have to. The first thing I used to do with a clone machine is take the brand new optics out and just throw them in the trash, before you even go any further. That was my first upgrade on those machines. And so it's nice to be able to pull something out of a box and it have good optics in it from the start, and you don't have to worry about all that. So
yep.
And in terms of Thunder upgrades, right, probably the only one, well, maybe two, right? The camera. I don't know if you've used a camera before, but I know a lot of people go back and forth, right? But yeah, I love my camera when you get it set up and it works. It's great. But the other one that I did that's probably not as common that is phenomenal is the digital air pressure readout. In terms of getting repeatable, consistent results, right? It's made night and day difference, right? And I can go in and run my compressor, right? And I put the external air compressor on it. But you can go run it, and you can get a repeatable output, right? And then you can get back to it. So, all of my settings that I add to my material library, right, it will say, walnut, dark engraved, defocus, 1 millimeter, 2 psi. Right, that's my description. And now I know exactly how to recreate it, because it's nothing worse than going and getting a phenomenal result, and then you come back like a month later and, yeah, my settings are there, but I don't know how I did it, because your air pressure was off, or your focus was slightly different, or one of the variables in there that you can't recreate because you didn't have an accurate representation of it.
Yep. And going off of that, your best investment for no matter what laser you go with, get a book.
Yep.
Get a little notebook.
Write it down.
Write down everything that you do, and you can see mine. When I find a better setting, I scratch it out and change it.
Yep.
And every single page on mine is a different type of material or whatever. And just keep it handy and write down everything you do at first, or when you're trying new material. Because that's, like you said, that's the only way you're going to be able to repeat the results, is if you know what you did.
Yep. And that's one I was actually thinking about putting in. The Lightburn suggested upgrades is like a free text field in the settings. You can put notes in the file, but in the actual like material libraries, right? You can go in and put your power, your speed, whether it's a fill, number of passes, the lines per inch. But there's nowhere in, you got air on or off, but you can't go in and put in, your air pressure or your focus. So a free text field on those would actually be very useful.
So this just clicked. Is this Jeremy, like the developer of Lightburn, Jeremy, that's on here?
No.
Oh. Sorry, the way you were talking, I'm like, wait a second, is this the developer of Lightburn, Jeremy? Actually, no, I think his name is Jason, isn't it?
Jason Gorey.
Yeah. Jason, yeah, okay. Too many Jasons now. We got Jason with Rotoboss, Jason with Lightburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what?
I think Jason is getting strangely close to getting working fiber.
That's what I've heard.
He's been asking a lot more specific questions and what people are doing with their fibers, and very pointed, specific questions. So.
Yeah, I need to reach out to him and see if I can get on the beta test list for his fiber rollout. So, because EasyCAD sucks.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that'd be neat. He's got a bunch of 2D lasers already. Galvos, he's had those for years, a couple of them, I think. But yeah, I think it's coming. I don't know for sure, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, he was on one of doing an interview on one of the Laser Everything podcast, and he talked about it a bit, and it's probably one of his most requested things is when's he going to do it? So
yeah. Well, it's gonna be cool. He's got a 3D one coming too, for the EasyCAD 3 to be able to test with that, an Aurora Pro. So
yeah, I need to get a hold of him anyways, because there's a feature that I know he could program in really easy, I think, it would be a complete game changer for me. And I bet you as more people get used to it, it would be that way as well, which is basically if I have a rectangle that's this big, that's a raised area, and I need to cut around it or something, I need to be able to program that the laser cannot travel within that rectangle.
Yeah, gotcha. like a dead zone, right? Or
Yep. All right. So I need to talk to him about that, because that'd be a game changer.
So Jim,
yeah,
are you gonna have one of your things?
Yeah, Travis.
I have to get back to work. I can't. I have to go back to work now. Or I would hang around. All right.
Brian's going to work. Jim's hosting the after party.
I'm gonna make
sure you turn off the recording this time.
I am turning off the